I can teach you how to bewitch the mind and ensnare the senses. I can tell you how to bottle fame, brew glory, and even put a stopper in death.
Welcome to Snape Chat, the voice of the Snapedom, the podcast where we discuss all things Snape, always. Join us as we dive into the world of the bravest man we ever knew in art, fanfic, meta, and more. Obviously. This is Snape-centric with episode 43. The topic is Dark Snape, in which Snape's character is or appears to be more on the bad side, or where dark things happen to him. I'm joined by GreenMegsNoHam, JalapenoEyePopper, masaothedog, and our special guest, MrVillain or Viran. Enjoy the show. This is Snape-centric, and I'm here with Al.
Howdy.
Megs.
Hello.
Masao.
Hi there.
And our special guest, MrVillain,
Hello.
also known as Viran. Okay, the topic today is Dark Snape.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yay.
So my first idea is what does that even mean?
I think you could get really definite with it and be like Snape that is cooperating with the Death Eaters, or you could get more general and yeah.
I've always thought of it as a scale from light to gray to dark. And so it's when that scale that's in the middle tips to the dark side, and the character becomes a little bit more irredeemable, even if they do good actions, but the bad actions just outweigh the good. That's always how I kind of thought of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree. There's the component of what he actually does is dark or light or somewhere in between, and also something very internal. He has been through so much, and his whole internalization of it can go to really dark places too.
How much darkness has touched him and impacted him as much as being dark himself.
So one thing that I had written in our outline early on was about the narrative introduction of Snape in the books, because our very first look at him is from Harry's POV, and it's not positive. It's quite negative. And that's kind of the Harry filter. Someone else must have put that comment in there. That's great. That's exactly how I feel about it too. It's the Harry filter. And then the first time he speaks is that speech during the potions lesson, and it's got this kind of dark and brooding tone to it. It's got kind of a quip at the end about not paying attention, but a lot of people have really latched on to that phrase, even put a stopper in death. And I think some people have twisted that to mean that literally stopping death, but I read that, I think, as intended, where it means to put a cork in some poison, that you've got the skills to kill somebody.
I hate to say it, but I don't agree with you. I think that's kind of a literal reading. That I really think stopper death can mean something like the draft of living death or something like that.
So anyway, whatever you get out of that first book, in fact, the whole first book, he's this deliberate red herring bad guy. Literally speaking.
Yes, very
that's
much
what
so.
he is. So he has to be bad enough to make us believe it. So there was always going to be kind of darkness to him from that very first moment, just even as a literary device. And I find that that's what made him so compelling from the beginning.
That's true. You have to wonder through the books. That's one thing that was handled very well, I think, was the equivocal nature of Snape until the big payoff. But I guess what I'm also looking at, it was at certain points in time, what if he turned left rather than right?
Yeah, what if he stayed a Death Eater, what if he never heard the prophecy? Would he betray Voldemort or stay dark, right?
Right. And you explore that with your comic War Prize, MrVillain. I just want to put a little plug out there because
thank you.
A very excellent comic. Okay, and yeah, and I guess one thing I'm thinking is, you know what a Snader says basically is.
Mm-hmm.
The word irredeemable comes up a lot when interacting with Snaders. And yeah, I'm generally not one to believe anyone is irredeemable, but it seems so much harder to fight back on this one. Because when you look at a lot of it out of context, it does seem pretty bad.
He was cruel to children. Oh.
Wait, Hal, I have a question for you. You said
Yes.
you believe no character is irredeemable. Does that mean you believe Voldemort is redeemable?
Yeah, way to put me on the spot, but yes. Yeah, I mean, as a character, you might, I don't know. See, this is one of those weird things. Like, I read it as no person is irredeemable. So when we're talking literary characters, you know, they're generally personified characters of some kind. And I have to believe that there is redemption for everybody. Now, there are plenty of times when the things they do are unforgivable, perhaps. That is something where I think I might be splitting hairs. I don't know.
Yeah, because and I mean, obviously not to get derailed off of Snape, but just kind of as a closing to that. But pretty much the whole series comes to a close of whether Voldemort is able to feel remorse for what he's done. That's like the ultimate telling of his character. And so in the end, when he refuses to do so, like if it had gone a different way, it could be written redeemably, but he was not written redeemably.
Yeah, Harry kind of offered him the option of feeling remorse.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And of course, he just, totally didn't understand. What about when dark things happen to Snape? Is that dark fic? I guess, dark fic and dark Snape are not necessarily the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it could have dark fic themes and Snape is a character or like an object within an overarching dark theme, I guess.
He could be a
So,
wump victim,
yeah,
He's not
literally
necessarily
every
dark
terrible
himself.
thing that ever could be
Uh-huh.
happens to him.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of us have in fandom taken and run with the part where obviously his home life was very dark as a child. So canonically, we have some evidence that bad things happened to him from a very young age.
Yes.
Right.
And so, yes, we can explore those dark themes. And I have heard from plenty of fans where that actually helps us like process our own traumas and our own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And so, yeah, it's not necessarily even that he's dark, but dark things happen to him. And like I said earlier, like when you internalize that, your mind can go to really dark places, even if your overall actions are a little more, I don't know, utilitarianly positive.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a good way to describe it or not. But yeah, bad things happen, and a lot of bad things have happened to Snape. He has been, who just said the word victim? That is exactly what I would have said too.
The imperfect victim.
Mm-hmm.
But then he also learns to protect himself in somewhat dark ways too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have always had canoned that as like the reason he knows so much about dark magic early on and starts meddling with spells and trying to fight back and fight dirty because maybe that's the only way that works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see it as like he was a target of someone who was against a thing. So it's like how better to get back at them to know everything about something that the other side hates.
Right.
So I think that kind of caused his obsession, but also gave him strength. I guess could be a great way to be like, oh, you say it's bad, but I know I'm like all knowing in dark arts, I guess you could say. And so then he can hold that up as something positive to himself, that he's like, I have all the knowledge and I know better than you, be that the Marauders or whoever else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and I think like from a meta kind of level, it's it's kind of arbitrary what's considered dark magic and what isn't, because obviously with between the Marauders and just everybody in general, like everybody's doing hexes and curses that could hurt people, right?
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
what makes the spells that Snape crafts dark spells versus another spell that could hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like you could choke someone with soap and
Right.
scourgify.
Right.
And yeah.
I like that canonical discussion of when Harry tries out Levicorpus for the first time, and then they kind of write it off as a laugh, and Hermione reminds them, well, that was used to humiliate and torture people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially seeing it the first time when the Death Eaters invade the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then you see the echo of that in Snape's first memory.
Mhm.
But in regards to like, well, you brought up Snaters, and I think that that's a good point. I think there's also this impulse of like, well, they claim he's so terrible. Sometimes it's kind of fun to just write him that way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snaters be damned.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to write it in spite of them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and these are fictional characters. It's not like they actually like stole your lunch money or whatever.
Mhm.
So
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just often seem to justify their own bullying with various things about Snape's character.
exactly. Well, and I think, we're talking about him in terms of like being an imperfect victim and like people,
Mhm.
processing their own like traumas through him. I think, part of that can be like, well, what if I didn't care about other people and I just, let that trauma make me as bitter and as hurtful as possible, and just exploring that in writing. I think that that's, kind of therapeutic in a way and fun to write and fun to read.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've had some interesting conversations with folks who have had their own legitimate like traumas regarding the teacher that they saw as cruel. And while I sympathize with that, I'm like, well, maybe like the Snapedom side of the fandom is just not for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that,
Exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like I would never take that personally if a person felt that way, but I think, where people become a Snader is where they're like completely focused on that.
Mhm.
Right. And yeah, mostly it's to justify the actions of the Marauders. Oh, yes, he deserved to be bullied because he was a Death Eater. Although, I mean, they kind of put the cart before the horse there.
Well, they saw it in his eyes when he was 11, obviously, is what
Yeah.
happened.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, was he born bad?
No. I personally don't believe anyone is born bad.
Yeah, agreed.
No, I don't either.
I think he was born starved of,
Yeah.
like probably
Oh.
starved of food, starved of affection, starved of any sort of community. And so, the whole watching greedily, like him, it could be him obviously wanting to be close to Lily because he found out that she's also a witch, but also seeing the relationship between siblings. Like he doesn't have siblings. Like there's just all these things that he's gone without that obviously can grow into the bitterness that we see in somebody. It's like the resentment of what someone has that you never had.
Mhm. Yeah. I still really take issue with the word greedily as he's watching Lily and Petunia.
I mean, I kind of get it though. Like, especially it sort of like reinforces the way that he was raised without the things that he genuinely needs. And I think, not to like bring up a fic that really doesn't even necessarily fit in this category, although maybe it does, the snack fic Godfathers that's coming out right now
Oh.
that I'm really enjoying touches on his food insecurity and how that makes him just eat his food so fast and so intensely focused like right now. And when I think about that, when I think about like him watching greedily, that's the kind of greed that I imagine is where he's just like, I have to take what I can get before it's snatched away from me. And like,
Right, as if it's not there anymore. It's
yeah,
like he
It's
has to.
it's not avarice, it's a coping mechanism.
right,
Right.
right.
Uh-huh.
I wonder too if this memory, and I could be remembering the books wrong, but like again, it's like Harry's POV, right? And it's maybe it's like one of the first memories he's seeing before he understands the truth behind Snape. So in his mind, he is seeing it as a greedy look, but he hasn't learned yet that that's not greed. It's actually something else.
Longing or whatever.
Like he's picking up on the intensity and interpreting it with a
Yes.
bias.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So it's not like the villain rubbing his hands and going, "Oh,
Right, I know. I was just gonna say, meh.
yeah, exactly."
8-year-old, like, yes.
Little, like Disney villain with the purple eyeshadow and
I
everything.
know.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I've seen comparisons with Snape and Disney villains
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
and kind of how they're transcoded.
Transcoded and queer coded in general. Yeah, like I would say that is the thing that made me like immediately like Snape when I started reading the books. And like granted, I was not a kid when I started reading the books, so it wasn't like I'm a little kid and I like how he's coded like Disney. But like I mean, I was like aware of that concept, right? And I was like, oh man, like he really fits this, and I was immediately like taken with him. So I guess if I'm reading like him like being bad and doing bad things, I think there's a part of me that finds that very fun in that way, if that makes sense.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely comes from historically over time, very problematic beginnings of what a villain looks
Right.
like, and then
Right.
has been stolen from and continued to use that, like, obviously our generation and in our youth, we're not looking at like, oh, this is this way because it symbolized something really awful that happened maybe like 50 years ago or whatever, things like that.
Well, and if we're thinking about like our own, I don't know how old exactly everybody else is, but like if we all grew up with like the Disney Renaissance movies,
Yeah.
I mean, those villains were like written and their songs written by a gay dude who very much was conscious of, the queer coded villains thing. So he's kind of like reclaiming that and like making it very cool and fun too.
Yeah, I'm much older than that. So I actually haven't seen most of those movies. I've just seen, I know who the villains are, but
Well, if we're talking the golden age I'm thinking of, that would be the 90s. And
Yeah.
then the composer we're talking about is Alan Menken, who is pretty brilliant. So
oh,
I was
yeah.
also thinking of Howard Ashman. Who,
Yeah, I was
Oh,
gonna
sure.
say Howard. Yeah.
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Unfortunately died, but also Alan Menken, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, you gotta like look at Scar. I mean, that's
Mhm.
that's Snape right there.
yeah. Then kind of the next thing is in his timeline is that he goes to Hogwarts knowing more curses than the seventh years, or dark curses, or whatever.
Dark magic, dark spells.
And we do have to recognize that this is something we learned secondhand. Like,
Yes.
Right.
this is entirely something from somebody who was antagonistic toward him. But there may, of course, be some truth in it. And I'm quite fine with that. And like I said, I'm sure it's something more like it's how to protect himself with how much has happened to him already, that's just the natural next step.
I mean, I like also think about like the reality of if that were true, like you can't do underage magic like without an adult. So like is Eileen teaching him this stuff?
Well, and that's in like a magical household with magical signature, not around muggles, and he's half muggle, as so it's like that. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he's off in the park by himself or in the middle of the forest, just doing all these things with a twig. I don't know.
Eileen's like taking him to like the magical shooting range and just teaching him all
I
kinds
know,
of
I
hexes and
don't
curses.
I cannot go up against your father, but you, my son.
I love that magical shooting range.
Yeah, I'm making a note right now. Pull up these fic ideas doc. Magic shooting range.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it. I like to draw Eileen armed and dangerous.
Yes, I'm picturing combination of like carnival games where like, Death Eaters or monsters are popping up and you're, have to hex them, or it's literally like clay creatures getting like thrown through the air that you're just like, blowing them up and
Oh my
stuff.
gosh.
Oh my gosh.
And Snape's just like, I'm 10.
I know, and he's like, I'm dead.
I'm having fun with my mom. I'm 10.
Oh.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Another look at, it says that he knew more curses. And I've seen it read that they were talking about swear words.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I could see that. I could see, yeah. I could see that.
I think it's funny though, because it's like I don't know, like my fondness for the way Snape talks when he's insulting people is I kind of feel like he's a little bad at it. Like he's kind of dorky when he's insulting people. So I just imagine like 11-year-old Snape who like knows a bunch of curse words but not really how to use them.
Oh. Yeah, what does fuck mean anyway?
The best fucking pudding I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I see here lack of positive role models.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. One time I made a list of the like male figures of authority in his life, and it was like, nope. Like, this is all bad. This is none of these people were shining stars for him. Like,
Bad news.
so yeah, there's a lot of themes in my fics about the daddy issues, the father figures that just utterly failed.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
and positive role models in general. Like, I'm kind of digging this like armed and dangerous Eileen.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
It's got some BAMF goals, but also may be a little problematic herself. Yeah.
Right.
She's awesome.
Mm.
Well, in Dastardly Lemon Drop, she's just a badass.
Literally armed with guns, yeah.
Yeah. She's a communist who's seen action, I guess, in South America and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Because I mean I had
Yeah.
to like deal with her absence. So I just had Snape like send her off to South America to avoid danger, and she came back.
She came back ready for danger, huh?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I also kind of have a notion of potions being a way that she possibly connected with him, and also was maybe still not a great influence, because if that's where his knowledge of poisons came from, maybe. And we've talked a little about the like queer coded side of things, but also the plain old misogynistic side, and how potions is it like the poisons are the women's weapon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So poison and his affinity with potions in general has always been another aspect of the dark Snape that I just think is so delicious.
I have a bit of a different opinion of that, because I always felt that Snape became a potions master, got good at potions because Lily was so good at potions. And so that's what he ended up doing.
Oh.
And yeah, because he was just like trying to find a way to connect to her, maybe, because even though he was so in love with the dark arts. But that's a little bit too light Snape, so we don't have to talk about that.
Oh.
And of course, I'm picturing Eileen brewing all of these poisons with Severus at home, but then pouring them down the drain.
Oh.
You know, like doing all these things with the means of like wanting to use them, but then being too broken in her, violent marriage to like not actually act on anything.
Oh.
So we got
That hurts.
two dramatic polar opposites there. But I do agree with Viran on that. It's like I think that it was something that like, because he's not necessarily happy to be the potions master. Like, he's good at what he does, so therefore he fits in that role. He's like the best for that role, but he wants a different job. So if it wasn't his like passion, like he would want to be in potions. So I could see that being like, we're not in the same house. We want, I don't want to lose my best friend because I'm starting to lose her for, the other people she's being around. We don't live together. We don't have all our classes together, but we do have potions together. So, because not every house has the same courses with everybody else.
Right.
So maybe that was always a Slytherin Gryffindor thing, because we see that with like Draco and like in the Lightning era, like Harry and Draco and them, they're all in potions together. So
I'd never heard that phrase. The Lightning era. That's fun.
oh yeah. There's a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, interesting. I think the idea that he wasn't into potions, I don't know, it could go either way. This is one of the things I love about Snape, though, is his versatility.
Yeah.
But I think we also, again, have a lot of that from Harry's point of view, where Snape's already a teacher. And it can be hard to separate sometimes the like subject from the pedagogy. But I always read it as Snape absolutely hates teaching.
Yeah.
And his passion
Same.
really is potions and the dark arts. Like, you can love more than one thing.
Right.
I teach math and computer science. It's totally possible to love and devote your life to both. And I read the books long before I became a teacher, but afterward on the reread, the speech he gives for that very first potions lesson is something that I see myself and a lot of other teachers do. On that first day of school, we express our enthusiasm for the subject and we talk about it reverently. And then like there's a honeymoon period maybe, and then the reality of teaching teenagers sets in. And
oh shit.
This is a headcanon that totally flies in the face of Dark Snape, so I'm sorry. But I imagine that, yeah, like he is really passionate about potions. And the reason, if he wants to be the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, it's because he believes only he can like equip these children to not die in the war, and he wants to save lives by teaching them.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Not very dark, so
he doesn't allow for a honeymoon period though, because he's like, unless you're a bunch of dunderheads like everyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He 180s that pretty quick.
He's literally like, it's like, oh, this is gonna be great, but you know, probably not, because you guys are all terrible.
I know this didn't happen because it's not important, quotation marks. That this time when he was using the advanced potions manual and doing all this brilliant stuff, and then you don't see that he's made any new spells, I guess.
Yeah, we have like no evidence that he created anything after he set that book down in a cupboard for probably decades. Yeah, and that doesn't mean he didn't. It just means it wasn't relevant to the story, or maybe it was. We can read into it as much as we want.
Well, yeah, that's what Thick is for.
Or maybe what he was working on was too dark to put in a book like that.
Oh.
I think the saddest possibility is that he just kind of gave up.
Yeah. I mean, teaching is a demanding profession too.
Yes,
10 months
it
out of the
is.
year, you're basically don't have time for anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially if you hate it, because then it's just like, well, this is sucking my soul. That's kind of what I was thinking. Like,
I just think of when like Snape like to Dumbledore's like, I'll do anything. He's like, anything? It's like, all right, you're gonna teach some kids. He's like, but I hate children. Like, oh, fine. This is gonna be awful.
well, I feel like he hates being on display too, which like, if you've ever been in front of a classroom of kids, it feels like that.
It's performance art. It's
I was gonna ask, does Snape like anything? Like, would he love any job? Like, really? I don't know.
I think he'd like researching, and like,
right.
Independently making up like potions and spells and stuff. Like if that's a job.
I agree, but I also still feel that he would complain about it.
Oh yeah, you gotta complain about it, even if you love doing it.
Well, right, I was gonna say like clients always have opinions, and their opinions are wrong, so it's going to like it's gonna frustrate the heck out of them.
Oh, so good. This is really too late to circle back, but we were talking about how he compares with the Disney villains. There's also the trope in English literature of the demon lover, who is like put in opposition to the hero, if you want to say. I'm not saying this very well, darn it. But basically, so this is demon lover is kind of the villain that is enticing the heroine. And he's often...
Yeah, this is like a gothic fiction trope, right?
Right.
Like, there's a fest coming up for gothic horror that I'm like, oh, I'm learning all about gothic fiction right now. So I think I know what you're talking about.
Oh, neat. Yeah. Yeah, but coded also as foreign. Dark.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's...
And then there are themes of power and dominance and like a supernatural power to it,
Mhm.
which we have all over this series. So yay.
Is there like a popular literacy or book that this demon lover character is, just so I can understand more?
Oh, Wuthering Heights. Has anybody
Okay.
else read that?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Oh, oh,
I think I made it about 2 chapters before I went to the Cliff's Notes. Sorry.
Oh.
You know, I have a
That's okay.
literature degree, but like everything I read was like way earlier than that stuff. So
Oh, wow. Interesting. So what, certain centuries?
I was doing like medieval and Renaissance. So like
Oh, neat.
yeah, little bit of 18th century there, but not a lot.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is it like demon lover, like a seductive lover that is dark, or
Mhm.
someone who loves demons?
Is it like, well, okay, I love the
Demon
idea
lover.
that Snape is like a succubus. Like that's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Love that.
Yeah.
But I think what you're getting at is like you've got like the light male lead who's got the love of the heroine, and this is like the dark,
Mhm.
creeping, like skulking
Mhm.
male lead who tries to seduce her away from the good guy,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like a Phantom of the Opera situation.
Yes, I was just gonna
Yes.
say that.
So is this character supposed to be a good guy or a bad guy, or just a morally gray
It's kind
guy?
of usually the bad guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Wuthering Heights, there's these 2 children who grow up together. One was basically a foundling who is dark-skinned and kind of not, how do I say it? It's the way he was brought up that he's kind of feral.
Mm-hmm.
Not as civilized.
Right. And she's from a nice family and all this. And they get separated, and she marries this other guy who's more appropriate.
As one does.
It's hard not to prefer a character like that, though. Like,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
But if I'm getting what you're saying right, we're making a connection here in the Marauders era and maybe looking at this particular dichotomy as Snape and James Potter and Lily in the
And
middle.
Lily, yes. Yes, there's a lot of parallels. That's my favorite one. And yeah, the reading is a little different, but if you can get into it, it's definitely a very worthwhile read.
So then I think this leads lovely into, let's talk about Snape the succubus and Snape the
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Snape the dominant dark lover.
There you go.
Yeah. Because that's where I think a lot of our fan fiction goes.
Yeah.
Is into the dark lover, the dangerous lover. There's a reason these things are tropes.
Now, just to like clear things up, I said succubus. That's like the feminine one, but I think this is more incubus.
Incubus, yeah.
Because I'm thinking when I said that, I'm thinking him is like this like femme fatale temptress, like who's working a subtle like seduction rather than like the kind of trope that you're saying, which is also very popular, obviously.
Yeah. The potions master.
Right.
Yeah, so it looks like we don't necessarily have a lot of notes about the sexy side of this.
No, we'll make it up as we go along.
Yes.
Oversight or yeah, so we've got all of these qualities in him that then I think lend themselves very well to being someone who has little prowess in the bedroom. For example, I mean, I think we've talked about this before. I want to say one of our early pods was the Snape and Sex pod. Yeah. So we've got a little background on, he has potions that could enhance or could drug you or could be used for other coercive purposes. He has some of these potions are canonical. Like, you want some truth serum? We've got some truth serum for you. You want some kind of way to be compelled? Yeah, we can do that too. Then we also have his skill with curses and a wand, and I've seen some real creative stuff with that. And of course, legilimency. This is one, I don't think we've mentioned that yet this time. But this is one of the places where I feel is really underrated as a dark aspect of his character is, you know, mind reading is pretty fucked.
Yeah.
That's
True.
a serious power dynamic that can go very dark very fast. So, yeah.
Especially if the other person doesn't know that he's doing it.
Right. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because in the books, we get evidence that it's like he tries to get into Draco's mind, but he's been taught how to keep him out. And
Right.
Harry is incapable. So it's
Right.
very easy for him to just like get the necessary information that he needs in a subtle way that Harry isn't going to notice. And I could see him. I mean, obviously, he's a very in-controlled individual. I couldn't say that he would do it accidentally. So, but I think he could also turn it off as needed and stuff like that. But being able to, I don't know. And then it's like being able to build like scenes or like, you know, like dream-like things that aren't real, but to kind of fake as true memories. There could be manipulation there with access to the mind and
one of my favorite like fics that might fall a little bit into this category that I've talked about before is Until Proven. And in that fic, like spoiler, sorry, it's a very old fic though, he does like erase Harry's memories. And it's portrayed as like a, you know, a very shitty thing that he does, but I love it. So
we need to put that in there, Rex.
yeah, I mean, like honestly, if you are amenable to Snary, this is one of those works that like you've got to read it. Like it's a hard read. It is very dark, but it's one of the best ones out there.
Okay, what is the title again?
Until Proven, and it's by Tira Nog. And by the way, like disclaimer, on the AO3 account, it says unfinished. It's finished. All of her works are finished.
I find that when you read the books and then you go back and read it a second time, there are so many instances where like Snape is looking into Harry's eyes and like suddenly you realize like, oh, he's trying to read his mind. He's trying to figure out what Harry's actually doing. So, and again, like it's not explicitly said, it's your interpretation, but I always interpreted that as like non-consensually trying to read Harry's mind, which always tipped his character a little darker for me.
Yeah. And there's a couple times where Harry is like thinking horrible things and thinking it so viciously that I always pictured Snape as being like, man, you're thinking that way too loudly. I can hear all of what you are saying about how horrible I am.
Because it'll be like, oh, he'll be doing something wrong or thinking about something, then all of a sudden Snape's there. Well, dude, stop like you know.
Yeah.
Broadcasting.
Exactly. Literally, like Snape's in the dungeons, you're outside, and he's just like, God fucking damn it, Potter. Like, I'm trying to do work.
I've seen it where he is natural legilimens is getting so much information from just, the people around him that he kind of goes into overload.
Yeah.
And has to learn how to basically
tune it out,
uses occlumency.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting thing. But I see legilimency as a dark art is on the outline.
Yeah, it definitely can be abused or manipulated. And I mean, it definitely does fascinate me too, for him being so accomplished in it, and then Voldemort being so accomplished in it, like how he was able to hide things, like hide genuine intent.
Right.
Because obviously he could tell when he was trying to be shut out. Voldemort would know if he was trying to be shut out of Snape. So it's like him being able to manipulate things or be able to come out with explanation why he said or did what he did, which I think about when he finally shows up after Voldemort comes back and like that whole thing about proving himself to him. Like I just imagine like, I don't know, a couple days marathon peeling through his memories and him going through like, you see, I say this in a way, but like literally doing this whole breakdown of everything that is just like amazing, but sounds terrible at the same time.
Yeah, there's an interesting aspect to spying and to undercover work and espionage where you have to keep things as close to the truth as possible.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect of like, we read him as a bad guy for a lot of the series because he's doing it intentionally. And whether that's something he's doing because it's really him or something that is part of his role is a little up for debate. And so it's nice to have that play and to have the option of saying that this is a dark dude who was going to do dark things anyway. So we may as well use him as the perfect undercover operative. Which I have another note related to legilimency and veritaserum, where that makes him a damn fine interrogator and makes him super useful to both sides, actually.
Oh, yeah.
As much as he twists the truth, he can also root out the truth, and he can be a very valuable informant himself.
Yeah.
When he wants to be, because he can also be stubborn and refuse to like investigate into something if he is so sure that he is correct. So that's kind of his weakness in that aspect. But yeah.
Also, don't forget that Dumbledore is a legilimens too. And Snape could have been presenting him with false memories as well as Voldemort.
Right.
And vice versa.
Which would be kind of dark of him.
Yeah, canonically, we have some evidence that it's difficult to fake a memory. We saw the kind of foggy nature of Slughorn's Horcrux memory. But that doesn't mean it can't be done. And whether you look at it as he's making stuff up and that could be a dark thing, or he actually does some dark things that he can spin either way.
Right.
And we kind of can have it both ways.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking so much actual memories, but I could see the Dark Lord looking in on him, and he has to, set his scenes or whatever.
Right.
Like kind of curate and guide.
Yeah, right.
I've always thought that about the final memory sequence too, in the Deathly Hallows, when Harry's looking at all those scenes. Like, that is far too comprehensive and coherent of a story. To him to just made it up on his deathbed. That was absolutely a curated story for Harry Potter.
Yeah, he's like, now look over here, and now over here. Don't look over there. Look over here.
He must have been saving it up. For when he finally found him.
It'd be really funny if like he gives Harry his memories and it's just a random jumble of nonsense.
Yeah.
Harry's like, what does this mean?
It's just his memory of like every morning, like making his tea a certain way over and over and over again.
Or just a curated memories of every single way you made my life a nightmare. And just like, man, he's like, it's like, I'm dying anyway. Here you go.
Just one last fuck you.
I have a fic where I kind of added a story where in the 9 months prior to delivering that memory sequence, Snape is practicing and has a companion on whom to practice with, like packaging up a memory sequence and collecting memories that are all related and grouping them together. And I might have to do a little side story now about the the other lockboxes that he had ready to go. Which one was he really going to give that Potter brat on his deathbed?
Right. Like, he could literally have a series of all the shitty stuff James did to him, like over the years, of like, here's proof. Like, not just you seeing the glimpse of that one memory, but like, here's the proof of like years and years and years of that torment, and like what that could do to a kid who like obviously thinks the world of a father that he never knew, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Interspersed with images of like Lily being super hot.
I know. Exactly. I loved Tuesdays when she wore that skirt.
Scenes of him being in the shower having a wank.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we're getting into a whole different kind of dark. I'm crying. Oh.
Just Snape
The magical world has so many wonderful avenues.
Oh,
so
man.
True. Okay, well, Boy, one big crossroads for him was when he became a Death Eater.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is my favorite crossroad.
Yeah, and okay, so we don't necessarily have exactly how or why. And this is one of
Right.
those things that makes him really compelling and really exciting for fanfic and fan
Yeah.
art and fandom in general,
Mhm.
is why did he join up and how did he do it and how did Voldemort select and vet his agents? And we don't have any like known test or ritual. We might assume there's something going on with the dark mark that is ritualistic, but yeah, like we don't know exactly how people become Death Eaters, and that's so fun to
Mhm.
explore.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I tend to think Snape's character around this era was definitely more dark, because for him to get into like Voldemort's good graces, he would have had to really proven himself and done some things to really convince him, especially to get on like the inner circle. So
Right.
yeah, like he can't just have been smart. Like he had to have like put his, I don't know, money where his mouth is. Yeah.
Put the work in. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's also the idea that he mostly functioned as a potioneer
Yeah, I've definitely read.
or poison potioneer.
Yeah, I've definitely read fics like that.
Hell, I've written ones like that. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
almost the obvious choice that he's
Mhm.
useful as a potioneer, a brilliant potioneer, the kind who can make like intuitive leaps and adjust recipes and create new things. So, hey, we need a potion that can do this. Well, Snape's your man.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And he may not even care whether it's going to be used for something light or dark, as long as he like gets paid or gets acceptance or
Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
I think that's the biggest thing, is like his fight for finding his place was like a big thing. Like even like growing up, it's discussed a lot about how did he actually have any real close relationships with the other Slytherins at all because he was a
Right.
half-blood?
Mhm.
Was he just, he because of his skills was taken advantage of because they could, he could help people with their homework or whatever, things like that.
Right.
And maybe it was something that like, oh, we need him because of such and such skills. And then I could also see it being something where like maybe he's on the fence and Voldemort learns about his capabilities. And then that's when he can confide in Snape and be like, I am also a half-blood and they cannot,
Yeah.
like we do great things, like outside of all the, the blood purity stuff and things like that. So,
Mhm.
but around the age that he joins, I mean, that's when you're still figuring out like what the hell you even want to do with your life or who you even are. And I could see him just going, like, knowing how strongly toward the light the Marauders are, even though their like whole values and things are problematic of their own, for him to be like, oh, well, that clearly is not what I'm the type of life I want to follow, and then went dramatically the other direction. So,
Mhm.
and
I
yeah,
can imagine there's like safety in it. Like these like people who treated him like terrible and did violence to him are like joining up on this side. Like
right.
I
Why
can
would I
imagine
want to? Yeah.
he would feel their safety in like, the other side, that he wouldn't be a victim to those kinds of things anymore.
Right.
Yeah. But it's only a couple years
Mhm.
before then, obviously, Lily and James die, and then all of a sudden he's a teacher at Hogwarts. Like, I mean, he's literally a Death Eater for what,
Just
maybe
the
3 years?
fucking worst.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
And I really like to imagine that Voldemort, like, he was very charismatic and he like showed a lot of affection towards his Death Eaters, whether it was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
fake or not, but like
Right.
he gave them a home, he told them they were valuable, he
right.
told them they had a purpose, and it was everything that the other side was neglecting to give him, right? So like in his POV, it was the good side.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got those daddy issues.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bless those
Mhm.
daddy issues.
Yeah. Like it's really interesting, like Viran said earlier about how he made it into the inner circle. Like we forget how small and intimate the Death Eaters really are. Like when he goes through the whole list of everybody, when, at the night at the graveyard, when he comes back, like he's like, so and so died, or so and so are in Azkaban, or like he does his short list of people that obviously have the dark mark and were called to him. Everyone else is kind of like, like you have the Snatchers and all these, things that these other characters that are dark or want to do things, but they're not like trusted in that way. So to get there, yeah, that's really
Yeah. Yeah, not like Stan Shunpike.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was not inner circle material by any means.
Right. Exactly.
There's also, what do Death Eaters do? And that is a
Mm-hmm.
dark area that can be explored.
Bring me a dark revel any day, and I'm there.
Rape
Yeah.
and murder.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of experiments, like even just like, because we know that Snape used to make spells that would hurt people. So maybe just like experimenting new spells on like muggles or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Also, I may have a headcanon going of Snape helping Voldemort with his resurrection ritual.
I was just gonna say that.
Ah,
Yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is essentially like this combined hybrid potion ritual. So there is a potion making aspect to it. And so, you know, how did he come up with this? What is it? The flesh, blood, and bone ritual. The how did whose expertise really guided that? Is
Yeah.
that
'Cause
something
it's like
Voldemort developed
Wormtail's there.
independently? Yeah, like he
Did
needed a
Wormtail throw this potion together and then did all the thing? You know, it's just it seems like a really big deal. Like you have to get it right.
Yeah. There's a fic in our rec list that I shamelessly self-promoted, Sloppy Assassins, where like kind of the premise is, you know, Snape was involved in helping create that ritual, and he is concerned that Voldemort would have had some other hedge to beat death. And so we need to make sure that there are no people left who would help him resurrect again.
Or be the only one who would understand how it happens and therefore probably have the key to ending it, or like knowing how something works then also means you can understand the unraveling of.
So yeah, that fic is dark in the sense that it starts out as an everybody lives post-war, and then a lot of people die because they need to die.
Yeah, it's a good fic.
I love that. It's like just
Oh,
like
go ahead,
everyone
Val.
lives. Just kidding.
Yeah, pretty much.
Until they do not. Yep. But under my terms.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Death Eater stuff, I don't know. Do we gloss over that and go back to like now he's joining up with Dumbledore and what Dumbledore has to say about what he's done?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Should we talk about the prophecy for a moment, or?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because clearly he heard it from the aspect of knowing that there will be like his remorse comes from, I didn't know it was going to be Lily's son. Like it didn't matter that it was going to be some baby. It didn't matter who it was. It was just like, you know, so then that lack of empathy in that regard that wasn't there, that he either was able to shut himself off from, like also darkness coming from the state of like untreated mental health stuff is also a, you know, a huge thing on things like that. So it's yeah.
Yeah, and compartmentalizing as a coping mechanism, like he was able to just say like, all right, this is the prophecy, got to protect my master.
Yep.
But then yeah, once he realizes the actual effect of this, we have a change.
Or do we?
Or do we? Because this is one point where I think the Snaters may have a point. Is like we don't actually know what Snape was thinking. We don't actually know how he felt about it.
Right. Like we know that, and we know how angry and disgusted Dumbledore was, like upon him coming before him asking to essentially save Lily exclusively. Like it just, you know, it was kind of an afterthought of like, fine, hide them all, hide them all. Clearly Lily was the key that kind of like broke everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely implies to me that Snape had done some things for Dumbledore to be really that upset and disgusted at him.
Not just like, oh, you chose the wrong side. Like I'm sure he heard stories of like, various things that happened.
Yeah, something that would justify him being AK'd by Dumbledore on sight. It's like, don't kill me. Wait.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like what would be worth, because we know how dark it is to a person to actually, you know, the act of killing. And he implies as much. It's like, oh, what of my soul, Dumbledore? Does that mean that he actually hasn't ever killed anyone? Or like his soul is already so tarnished and broken, like another instance of it could take him beyond whatever. Yeah.
Although I do feel like, from the moment that Snape first went to Dumbledore to like the very end, there was a huge character change. So like, he eventually became friends with Dumbledore, became friends with all these other professors at Hogwarts and was protecting Harry, was protecting the kids. So I do feel that there was a character change and that maybe at that point his soul could be redeemed a bit more.
Yeah, because I mean, if he has true remorse, like we talk about that with Voldemort earlier, like if he has that true remorse, that could essentially, like heal a ripped soul, when you actually feel the evil that you did and accept it for what it was.
Or, a couple of decades of forced proximity can just make you feel a little more attached to people.
Yeah, that's Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Because I'm under no illusions that Snape was there by choice. Like,
yeah,
is this like a Beauty and the Beast reverso? I never felt this way before.
I see this in like the relationship between Snape and McGonagall and how, the forced proximity may have played a factor and maybe they were like best bitches for a while, but also she believed it that he killed Dumbledore and was the bad guy. And that was kind of by design, but that doesn't speak to like decades of friendship. That speaks to, oh, there was something kind of forced about it, or maybe like she had a suspicion or something.
Yeah, I think also like a part of it is she went for so long, similar to Dumbledore, like defending Snape, like her being so sure of his innocence that it probably felt like a betrayal.
Oh, yeah.
And that can really break someone. Like she's not going to immediately go to like, well, there has to be a reason that, whatever. Like it probably was like all this time.
Just an astonishment of how could he?
Because no one knew. No one knew. It was literally Snape and Dumbledore were the only ones that knew. So it's just, apart from Harry knowing about the curse from the, not knowing that eventually it would kill him within a short span of time, but yeah.
Hey, forced isolation also does funny and dark things to your mental state.
Yes.
So there's another aspect of darkness. Like that's a theme that comes up in some of my fics too. Like this isolation factor, when you feel alone, when you have no one to confide in, things get a little weird.
Oh yeah.
Very, very dark.
Sometimes I wonder, I'm sorry, maybe I'm circling back again, but Dumble saying, "You disgust me." Did he treat him that way throughout their relationship?
I mean, I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's fun. I like the idea that Dumbledore is just like negging him in order to like better manipulate him.
Yeah.
I think that's like narratively extremely fun. Yeah.
But I don't know if I can. I still feel that towards the end, that dynamic shifts because Snape was pretty out about having to kill Dumbledore, like he didn't want to.
Yeah, he was really mad about the ring. He was like, "You idiot! Like, why the hell would you put that ring on?" Like he was really upset, and he was just like, "Oh, just a, like a weak man that I just, something happened." He's just like, "Oh my God!" Like, yeah. So there has to be some sort of level of affection there.
Well, and I can like if I wanted to like really write this and do this like situation where Dumbledore is doing this, I think that by treating him like garbage, it would still also going through a cycle of treating him like garbage and kind of love bombing him, it would like trauma bond Snape to him very intensely, but like in this abusive, and I love that. That's very fun to me.
I also really enjoy the snark factor, especially in that scene of why are you so stupid to put this ring on? And I'll never forget that line, would you like a moment to compose an epitaph? I'm like, that is them when peak snark banter. And you almost only do that with a friend.
Right. Trying to make light of something. Because that could also, he could read into how upset that Severus was. Like, if, like I need to like, whatever. I don't know. I'd like with talking about other things, I just kind of thought about something is we don't see a portrait for Severus, right? And like we get like after the fact details of how enchanted portraits are made, which is essentially sitting down with a painting of yourself and sharing your memories and experiences with them. So it's literally a copy of you. There's no way in heck that Severus would ever sit down. Oh, it was talking about not having someone to talk to, like feeling isolated or whatever. I don't think that he could easily come to terms with the life he's led and be able to even talking to himself. I feel like that's why he would never have a portrait, because he never would be able to speak aloud all the unspeakable things that made him who he was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good point. Yeah, I always kind of thought of blood magic. I don't know that
Oh,
you
cool.
actually infuse part of your physical self into the painting, but I like that training your portrait.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine, though, that also Snape would have some misgivings about any kind of shallow copy.
Right.
Like,
Oh,
this is
for
a
sure.
deep
Yeah.
dude. Like,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of people can relate with like how AI comes out sounding like a little off, a little novice, a little uncanny valley. And, you know, no matter what side of AI you land on, that is definitely a shallow copy of like what a depth of a person would be.
Yeah.
Mhm. Although I'm pretty sure there were scenes where like Snape was talking to Dumbledore's portrait, and he was like really like, because he was like stressed out about having to pretend to be this like evil headmaster. I'm pretty sure like, so he was really like relying on Dumbledore's portrait or something. Or I could be making this up. I don't know.
No. It's true. Like he kind of was there to support him through. We're almost at the
Mhm.
end. Like we're almost there. Like you can, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And in
So
the extreme isolation he was feeling, in that case, even a shallow copy might be better than no copy.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
like not actually having Dumbledore to talk to, you still reach for that connection.
yeah, because it's
Mhm.
I mean, eventually, obviously, we'll do a Lori Kim episode, but I've recently been rereading her book on Snape. And what was really interesting to me is it pretty much paints the picture of everything that he is doing is in the like it's meant to be unknown. Like no one is ever, he never tries to convince anyone that he can be redeemed or he is not this evil person, because that's what he has to put out there. So I feel like leaving something behind that would unravel that, it would be difficult because he's literally building decades of time of being someone that people are meant to hate or meant to be suspicious of.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like he only told the truth as Harry saw it
Right.
on his deathbed. Like he was bleeding out. He was dying. And that was the only time he was allowed to be true to the mission.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I will say though, it does bother me that he doesn't have a portrait. So
Yeah.
I
Oh,
I
yeah.
love it in fanfic when they give him a portrait.
Yeah. I think that he just wanted to disappear,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which is really sad. But I think that's what he wanted.
Yeah. Sometimes I've seen it read where the castle creates the portrait.
Yeah. I like that headcanon, especially because like the castle knows what's really going on, right? They see everything. So
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I really like that. Mhm.
But then JRK's reason that Snape isn't there was because he abandoned his post, which
That's dumb.
it is. It really is. Because
That's like
Jesus
not
Christ,
true.
does everybody have to die in office or something?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
And like with that logic, you could claim that Dumbledore abandoned his post because he
Yeah.
asked Snape to kill him.
Oh,
Yeah.
true.
So
And he left
what?
and he left when Umbridge was taking over.
Yeah.
Like obviously he
Yeah.
had his
Oh,
reasons
oh,
or
yeah.
whatever, but he's technically abandoned it, but then was reinstated. Like, come on.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's
Eh,
ridiculous. Snape was there
nah.
till the very end.
Yeah.
Like, talk about missing the point of your own.
Right, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Okay, JKR is fired.
Yep.
That's why we're here. That's why there's fanfic. We gotta fix it all.
So I love the castle being somewhat sentient as a character, or at least as another possibly dark force in the
Mhm.
story. I love all the
Oh.
fics I've read where the castle like locks people in a room together and where the castle puts an impossible situation before them. And this is a part of writing dark fic
Yeah.
that I find really appealing because you can also, you know, pretend like your characters are not dark. They're just doing the dark thing they have to do.
Well, yeah,
to
because
get out
it's
of the situation.
because we get there's no safer place than Gringotts and Hogwarts. So that shows that there has to be really strong magic to obviously block other strong magic from like just the average witch or wizard capability. So that would make sense that literally all the magic that was given by the founders, like just the combination of the four of them, really made a really my mind goes to Smart House, which is like super weird.
No, I
Like
mean
that,
it's got that vibe though. And like if you want
yeah,
to
like
write
it's
Dark
just
Dumbledore, then like
yeah,
Hogwarts becomes like a panopticon.
yeah.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm gonna ask because I'm stupid, but what is the panopticon?
It's a circular prison where all the cells are in a circle facing the middle, and there's a guard that can like look in on any given cell at any given time, but the prisoners can't see the guard, so they believe they could always be being watched.
Oh,
So
weird.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and this
Oh.
goes great with Hogwarts where the walls literally have eyes.
Right.
Like
Mhm.
those
Yeah.
portraits
The
see and talk
portraits.
and yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Is this from a specific fic?
No, I mean it's a concept that exists in reality, unfortunately.
Oh,
Right.
no.
But I definitely when I'm writing Dastardly Lemon Drops, I mean, I don't know if I like make it like super obvious, but that's why Snape is really selective about what portraits he has in his personal space. If it's a portrait that has a face, it's not anybody that will talk to Dumbledore,
Oh.
but it's mostly landscapes and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a fic somewhere where it's like the landscape portrait is the secret door to his rooms. And
Yeah.
I've got other parts in fics where like during the time when he's headmaster, he just looks at that wall and they all know they're supposed to bail out of their portrait frames so he can have a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck off, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how about Snape as the potions master, as in potions teacher this time? How he treats Harry.
So that's really interesting because there's like a division with like Snape fans where some people think that it's an act and that he's like trying to do this just to like maintain his level of spy if like he ever needs to. But I always felt that it was like just him being very honest and like this is
Mm-hmm.
like he's just mean and he's a little bit nasty. And I don't think you can really fake that. I
No filter.
yeah. For me, like, and I could be wrong, but like I don't feel that Snape is a good actor. I feel like he's really good at like blocking emotions and like going blank face, but I don't think he could just like, you know, spend 20 years being this like utter bastard
Mm-hmm.
without actually knowing if like Voldemort's coming back or anything.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's probably a little column A, a little column B, and you're absolutely right. And there's evidence in like when he blows up, he blows up. Like he's a
Mm-hmm.
when he has a meltdown, you know it is unfiltered, and you know that he is not acting anymore.
Oh yeah, like when Sirius is like
Mhm.
freed, like literally Cornelius Fudge is like, "Are you sure? Like he doesn't need to like, is he okay mentally? Like he's clearly just absolutely beside himself."
Yeah, normally I'm fine with anything a movie wants to do to adapt a book, but I do feel very cheated that we didn't get his like total meltdown at the end of book 3 on screen. That would have been so much for his character, and honestly, I would have liked Alan Rickman doing it. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
I think like even if you imagine if you're writing it that way where like he doesn't really hate Harry, you have to imagine that he's going to be very angry at this kid who like is constantly trying to die, Like
Yes. Oh, for sure.
that would piss anybody off.
Yeah, because it takes what, Lupin to finally say to him, I mean, it's harsh, but it's a poor honor to the memory of your parents who died for your life to be putting it at risk when he's running off to Honeydukes when this, Sirius Black, who's supposedly out there to kill him, they put in all these protections, the Dementors, all of that stuff, and he just doesn't care.
Doesn't care. And like, even at the points where it's like it's more recklessness,
Yeah.
or it's just him being thoughtless, you have to imagine that Snape is just like, could you make this any more difficult for me?
Right. Literally, yes.
Okay, I have a side tangent question here because something you said, Meg's like really like hit it off. So, do we think Lupin thought Sirius killed James and Lily, and like that's why he's like, Harry, it's like dangerous to go out, or like, because I'm confused because I think that he would be the most confused of all of them and like be like, I need to get to the bottom of this and like chase down Sirius himself. I don't know.
Oh, you mean that he would have a hard time believing that it was Sirius who betrayed James and Lily?
Yeah, because I can't imagine Lupin thinking that happened, and like, and even if he did believe that, surely he's like, I must find out why.
Right. Yeah, like
Uh-huh.
Like he wouldn't just
how,
let this
yeah.
go.
Oh, uh-huh. In the meantime, I'll put Snape in a dress.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mhm.
sorry, it's
Yeah, I'm salty about it too. I get you.
okay.
Yeah. That is the one scene that on my like reread of the books, I'm like, oh damn, like he
Right.
really
Mhm.
did Snape dirty there. And knowing the backstory, like the first time through on reading the Bogart scene, you're like, oh, this is fun. Asshole teacher gets his comeuppance. And then on the second read, you're like, oh shit. Let's just perpetuate this decades-long bullshit. Yeah.
Right. And then what is it on Christmas? The cracker turns into the hat and then
Yeah.
Dumbledore
Yeah.
wears it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
Oh,
like,
man.
what the fuck? Like, that's just, like, that's awful.
It's rubbing
Yeah.
salt in the wound.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, as to your question about like, does Remus, is he the most confused? Does he want to get to the bottom of it? That is a great question. And now I feel like I really need some fanfic that answers it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is because there's no proof otherwise that Wormtail survived, that it was like, oh, this is the actual evidence of him being violent to another one of the Marauders and murdering this other character. So it's like whether it was like Sirius went off the deep end or something happened, but I don't know. And like I think just Remus has had such a tough time that I don't know. Like maybe it was just hard for him to actually like come to terms with or sit in it to really, I don't know.
Mhm. I always wonder what it was like when like Remus started working at Hogwarts and then he's face to face with Snape.
Yeah.
And there's just like there's so much history and like Snape knows like all this stuff. I don't know. I always wonder what their conversations were like, or if they even talked at all, or just avoided eye contact and pretend the other didn't exist.
Right.
Drink your potion, bozo.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes the wolf bane.
He replaces the wolfbane with like laxatives.
Mhm.
Yeah, he really could have.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Sirius, why his friends might have believed he did it. And one thing I really love about Sirius and Severus, and why I also ship them, they're my favorite slash ship for Snape, y'all is because they are kind of foils in many ways.
Mhm.
And so I want to say I've written like a drabble or something where Sirius was also undercover, where he was also highly isolated, and like it was supposed to be you could believe anything, like he was capable of anything. So, and we are tragically like low on backstory for him. It was not a priority to the narrative of the series.
Yeah, apart from he was disowned supposedly, and
Yeah.
yeah.
At this time, Regulus also went missing. So
Mhm.
people are confused.
Mhm.
Well,
Oh,
maybe
yeah,
that
yeah.
has an effect on it.
Right.
Mhm.
That's true.
Yeah, there was no shortage of darkness on either side of that war, really. So, yeah.
Okay.
Gosh, we've done good. I'm just peeking at our outline and we're making
Yeah.
great progress
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we actually missed much of anything.
I guess my, like a segment that I would love to get into is if we're going into like further darkness, like either out of canon, like out of character Snape, like but he's written, like I feel like he can be written in fan fiction very convincingly as extremely dark. Like we talk about War Prize,
Mhm.
and like we see some vulnerability between, like spoilers, like eventual vulnerability with Harry, but for the most part, he's very dark and like really remorseless of the choices that he makes. And like I can read a story that's him being absolutely evil, which I think we made note of that. It's like dark versus evil Snape. And so getting to see his character explored in a way that the Snaters think he is like it's also fun just because I love villains and villain stories. And if he's the darker, the better if you're going to redeem him later. Or if he's not redeemed, that can also be good too. Like I love that conflict of how evil and dark and manipulative he can be because of how brilliant he is and how much trust he's been given from various people and stuff like that.
Yeah, for as much as I love the like tortured soul version of Arsev, I also
Uh-huh.
just it's so delicious when he just owns it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, absolutely.
I like Fix where his darkness comes from a place of being deprived, and his response to that is, I'm just going to take whatever I want.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. It's like him taking
Mm-hmm.
that which was withheld from him,
Right.
especially if he's given the power, like if he's really close to Voldemort, which means like he essentially can do whatever the fuck he wants to and is encouraged to do so, and he just thrives in it.
Yeah.
So that is kind of the setup to one of the recs on my list. I Want That One by Teddy Radiator. It's like a post, supposedly Voldy won, and now there's spoils of war trope going on, and Snape picks Hermione and abuses the shit out of her. And I think it's all from Hermione's point of view, so she doesn't get the like secret internalization of it. So it just looks like he is this dark, abusive asshole. And by the end, you get sort of a twist that lets you look at it however way you want. Spoilers, but it's but that's what makes it so satisfying, is that you can kind of go, oh, we still don't actually know if he was enjoying his spoils of war or if he was truly like tortured soul the whole time. So yeah, that's one of the things that I really like about it is yeah, you get some ambiguity there, and he can just take something because he has that skill and that power.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I find that to be very common in a lot of dark Snape fics where like he's so bad the whole time, but then at the very end you're like, oh, maybe he was actually good. Or like there's like a spark of hope there. It's
Mm-hmm.
very common, which
Yeah.
I guess is like with canon as well, same thing. That's what we love the most about him.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, we talked a little bit about his relationship with Dumbledore, and I always wondered when he killed him, did he have at least some hate for him that he could draw on to power his spell?
I mean, I like to think so, but like maybe as you know, I'm a huge fan of like dark Dumbledore stories. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. At the
Yeah.
very least, manipulative Dumbledore,
Yeah.
and you can come up with some resentment at the very least.
right.
Because we
Mhm.
see so many instances where he just doesn't listen to Snape or just like shuts things down, like, we'll talk about this later, but makes him look bad in front of other people. So it's like him being this different type of father figure that it's like
Yeah.
for him to be able to power down to, there has to be some sort of toxic energy there, which would be similar to like his own experience with his father in a different way.
Even if it's like codependent, I could see it
Yeah.
being that way.
Yeah. I can really see it that it's actually he musters up his self-hate to get this act done. Because I don't know you have to specifically hate the person you're casting. You just have to have like a lot of hate in your heart.
You have to like you have to mean it, like want with the
Yeah.
intent to.
Yeah, because like for him to like kill Dumbledore, it means it feels like a punishment for himself because he doesn't want to, but he hates himself so much that he's able to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, or that's just one interpretation that I go by, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And in general, I can picture a lot of hate in Snape's heart, even to the end, just for, Dumbledore being manipulative, for these dunderheads he has to teach, for the pressure he is under, and all the resentment of the past and all his baggage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like there's plenty of room for hate that can get twisted into something dark for us.
Yeah, because we see that after he kills Dumbledore, when obviously he wants everyone to get out because he wants to protect as many of the school that he can, but then ultimately is confronted by Harry, who he continues to like, no, I'm not gonna interact with you, like get back, whatever, is just trying to get out. But as soon as he starts attacking him as like calls him a coward, like something clicks in him, and then he like does the whatever slashing spell that eventually smacks Harry across the face. Like he's finally getting out the like, shut your mouth, you don't know anything sort of thing. Because what he just did was like extremely brave to have done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now that we're talking, I can see that maybe the next progression in the timeline would be Snape as headmaster.
Yeah, that one's tough because we don't see any of it because Harry wasn't at school that year. We only hear stories. Like the best aspect of redeeming him is like, oh, when he gives detention, he sends them into the woods with Hagrid. But obviously, he has to maintain his position and allow horrors to like happen to these kids. Otherwise, it could be so much worse. So it's just living in that and knowing that he cannot protect everyone, but at least he's doing something.
Mm-hmm.
But then is part of him like happy about it? You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, this is a circumstance where some people are getting what they deserve or something like that.
And also, was he put into the position ever that he had to torture a student?
Yeah, it's tough to say.
It's hard for me to imagine him doing that, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't think he did. I don't know.
I think he would have had to been forced. And I don't know. I've read fics where that actually does happen, but I can't think of him at the moment because yeah.
Well, you read
Well-
so many, and then it's just like it's all a blur.
Yeah.
And I'd say that in the power structure of a school, the headmaster is generally not directly in charge of discipline.
Right.
I think canonically we have the Carrows are officially in charge of
Mhm.
discipline.
That's true.
And that is something that, yeah, I don't think he did, maybe not necessarily because he wasn't dark, but because he didn't have time.
Mhm.
He was busy corralling
Right.
the staff. He was busy dealing
Mhm.
with parents and the board. And that was his role. He was a little more hands-off in the day-to-day with students.
Mhm.
That's true. Well, they say that they hardly ever saw him, which
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was just like a bat in his tower, like just like
Mhm.
yeah.
He was just locked himself in his office and had like a panic attack for like 5 months,
Yeah.
basically.
Now that
Fair.
said, also in the power structure of a school, it is still his responsibility to know what's going on and to make sure that things are running the way they're supposed to be running. So he might have been more hands off, but he still had a responsibility. And ultimately, the buck would stop with him in terms of, hey, the Carrows who you appointed are torturing children.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And he has Dumbledore there, the portrait. Like he has someone there to like hold him accountable or to at least guide him in how he's supposed to handle the situation.
And plus, when you have a school as like sentient and magical and potentially dark magical as Hogwarts, you could be like, oh no, the Carrows fell down the moving staircase.
Right, exactly. Yep.
A horrible
Like-
accident.
Mhm.
Like I needed the moving staircase to like have a redemption arc at the end of the story, and it
Right.
did not. But that's fine.
Oh, that's good. And okay, then we get to the death scene. We've talked about his memories.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting if he was dark. I wonder if that would change the way he felt about being, killed by Voldemort.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, you're betraying me. I don't know. Maybe not.
Well, aren't Voldemort's words something like "I regret it"?
Yeah.
Like he holds some kind of like value.
This is the last thing I'd want to do, but I have no choice, sort of thing, because he wants the power of the wand, even though it's misled.
Yeah.
So it's just,
Mhm.
yeah.
It's so astoundingly tragic and how dumb and senseless it was because that was not the order of ownership.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we do
Yeah.
see Snape in a situation that he's not completely controlled because he realizes he has a job to get information to Harry, and he's like begging essentially, like, I can go get him, I'll bring him to you, I'll go get him, because he has to get what he needs to get to Harry, and it's just so lucky that Harry
Mhm.
happens to be there when
Right.
he's dying. He could have just died and had nothing,
Right.
just everything
Mhm.
is just done and over, and Harry knows nothing.
Mhm.
Unless he faked
Yeah.
his death.
Right, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, I think in other episodes or whatever circumstances we talk about, like, he's a potioneer,
Right.
like maybe he has his own safety, like, antidote kit that he just has with him all the time, and then he goes into hiding, and yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
Fucks
Yeah,
right
that's-
off.
Mm-hmm.
It's my favorite tag. Severus Snape lives.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because afterwards is so interesting. So many possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
See, yeah, he can go, he can go to New England and open a coffee shop or
Yeah.
a bookstore.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh. Totally be Muggle.
Yep. Just like, I want nothing to do with any of this ever again.
Yeah.
Or he can go on a murder spree.
That too.
We've got it all.
Mhm.
Sloppy assassins.
Oh yeah. Just let me shamelessly say that again. Like that was so much fun to write. I like writing my like HEAs and tortured souls and whatever, and it's just so much fun to accept a little darkness and accept that this gives you so much more to work with and make something truly entertaining. Not that the others aren't entertaining, but it's nice to mix it up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's nice to just go there. It's nice to dial it up to 11. And then maybe go write a sappy fluff fic right after because I need that to cope.
Right, you need the
Oh.
cleanse. Yeah, exactly. Totally.
I just thought of another thing is the seduction of dark arts.
Mm-hmm.
Often
Mhm.
it's written that you get kind of a sexual pleasure
Mhm.
from
Mm-hmm.
doing dark magic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be a really good reason to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that definitely makes me think of like there have been at least a couple of fics that I've read where Snape has like a sexual attraction to extremely powerful magic, and that's led him to like join up with Voldemort, and then eventually like leads him to a relationship with Harry, because obviously I'm reading a lot of Snary, but I could definitely see that being like a pull on him towards Voldemort's side.
And I wish I had a title for y'all, but I'm pretty sure I read a couple of fics where the ritual to receive the dark mark is a sex act.
Mm-hmm.
It is very much a literal seduction into the dark arts.
Mm.
Hmm.
Damn, that Voldemort's one lucky guy.
Yeah. I was going to say Snape only took the dark mark because he wanted to get laid.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Poor guy.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get it any other way. Well, I think we can go to the fix. Okay.
Woohoo.
Okay, we talked about Sloppy Assassin. That's by JalapenoEyePopper. Ta-da,
Woo-hoo.
right here. And that's a fun little snack.
But
Yummy snack, yes.
Yeah. Like when I realized that was what that ship was getting called, I'm like, oh man, it's the perfect the
Mhm.
perfect name.
Uh-huh.
What else we got?
Maso mentioned Until Proven by Tirnog.
Yeah.
We'll have links to all these fics, by the way, so.
And like, just to summarize that, Snape is falsely accused of doing something really horrible. Harry is a professor at Hogwarts, and in aiding him, like proving his innocence, he kind of unravels a lot of Snape's personal trauma, and it kind of steps the line of being like a dark Snape fic, because it's kind of more of like he's a tortured soul or whatever. He does do some shitty things, so it's fun.
I think like some of my favorite dark Snape fics is like Invictus and the Knights of Gethsemane. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Where they're like companion fics where one is told from Harry's POV and the other is from Snape's. And basically, like, Harry is a prisoner of the Death Eaters, and Snape is like his jailer.
Ooh.
But Snape still has to like maintain that he's a Death Eater, and so he has to be very convincing of it. And of course, that includes like periodic tortures or just, unsafe living conditions or whatever. And so as the reader, like, Snape is secretly on the side of good, but when you read Harry's POV, you don't know that, and you're really like experiencing like his horror. But it's really interesting because I would say actually Snape's POV is even worse to read, because even though Snape's telling himself, like, I have to do this, just the way he convinces himself that it's okay what he's doing when it's really not okay. Like, it's really quite terrible what he has to do. Yeah, and it's one of my favorite Dark Snape fics because it really like tips you over into like, no, I don't think he's morally gray. I think he's actually pretty evil.
Mm-hmm.
Although that being said, like, as this fic progresses, like, that does start to tip a little bit. But it is really interesting just like getting into his mindset, which is really cool.
And there's a lot of sex.
Oh, there's so much.
I guess that's the thing about dark fic, has a lot of sex.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
love it.
Yeah.
That like horotica.
Yeah, sex and power
Yep.
dynamics feature a lot because,
Mhm.
it goes dark pretty fast when you have an imbalance of power.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's another really good one I think it's called In Between Days by Atrata, where Harry is clinically depressed and Snape's like, and he goes to Snape and is like, this is too hard for me to bear. Like, can you just take control for a little while? And I think it takes place like around fifth year or sixth year, like during the summer. And Snape's like, okay, like I'll take the reins for a bit. And the fic is written in like flashes of memory of Harry's POV, and it jumps around a lot, and so you see him kind of living with Snape, but then in the middle of it you see these like really terrible acts, and as the reader you're like, is this actually happening, or is Harry's memory being muddled or something like that? Like, why one scene goes from like something very wholesome and then the next scene it's like non-consensual sex, and you're like, wait, like what, how did we get there?
Mm.
Oh.
And so as the reader, you're trying to piece together like, okay, what's actually happening? Is this all in Harry's head, or is Snape being evil or manipulative? It's a really fun read. I recommend yeah.
Oh. Who's the author again?
Atrata. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Atrata.
Okay. I might ask you to drop us a link and I can.
I think we
add
already
to-
have it in our list. So
Oh, do
yay.
we?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Never mind.
It went on my to read list when I was going through it for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure which ones are, because one thing I did, I go in AO3 in the Harry Potter fandom, and I think it's search within results. You put in summary : Severus, and then you get only the ones where Snape is actually in the summary. He's named. So he's
Oh,
more
cool.
likely to be a major character and hopefully the main character.
Nice. Good tip.
Yeah. And I sort by bookmarks. So that's what some of these are from, because I figure if people like something enough to bookmark it, it's pretty, what's the word?
It's a good sign.
It's a good sign.
I've seen bookmarks used in two primary ways. The bookmarks that are like, this was great, and it's essentially a rec.
Mhm.
But I've also seen plenty of, I bookmark literally everything I read so that I have a record of it and my reaction to it and all that.
Oh, you can
Yeah.
just do history.
And also to archive it. Yep. There's a lot of
Uh-huh.
great bookmarks I've seen where they're actually just documenting the metadata in case the story gets
Oh.
deleted.
Oh.
So then, stories aren't necessarily lost forever, or you're not, or at least you're not looking at your bookmarks going, man, what was that?
Mhm.
Yeah. And bookmarks are searchable, but history is not, which
Mm.
really annoyed me when I was going through this, because the other thing I did was look back on ones that I had read that impressed me.
I definitely use my bookmarks as a to-read list, even though I shouldn't. But it's a bit of a mess. Like, everything in my bookmarks I haven't even read, to be honest.
Well, yeah, before I knew what to do, I would subscribe to something if I liked the first chapter, and even if it was already complete. But now I know there's the marked for later. Anyway, so one thing I found was called Night Watch by Mia Ugly.
Oh, I love this one.
Okay. Yeah, it's another one that's Snape's POV from the Knights of Gethsemane. And it's a one-shot, so it's a much shorter read than Invictus, which is about 100,000 words, I think.
Yeah, and I think the Knights of Gethsemane is like over 300K.
Yeah.
I've yet to finish it, to be honest, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, I've been working on it, and I don't know if I'm asexual because I get bored of the sex scenes. It's like, can I just skip through this?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, that one's a lot. But
Yeah.
like you said, like the Night Watch one is a little bit shorter and to the point, like on the plot. So
Okay, good. Okay, one I had found was His Mother's Eyes by Black White Light, and it's a dove. I'm trying to remember. It's a one shot, but the summary is Harry always has a cunt when Snape fucks him. So
oh damn.
Oh yeah.
it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of this weird mind fuck, I guess. The whole story. It's really interesting.
Was it like a detention or like is it post?
Yeah.
I need some details.
Yeah.
I believe it's so war was lost. Let me
Oh.
Ooh,
or
it's
Harry
short.
was
It's
captured.
yeah, it's less than 7K, 3 chapters, and
Mhm.
oh man, that is definitely some bad guys one stuff. Yes.
Yeah. So
I need to read this.
Mark for later.
okay, we mentioned In Between Days. That's the one where he is not sure of what is reality. Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And like my all-time favorite dark Snape fic is Ab Intra and Ab Extra by Arisha,
Oh, absolutely.
who, and I know you've interviewed her on your podcast before, but like, oof, it's just, it's so good. I don't even know where to start, but basically, like, Snape goes to Azkaban, and a lot of the abuse and trauma from there, it, shapes who he is when he eventually leaves Azkaban. And he has a really hard time connecting to people and, like, kind of getting back into society. And it really is a story about the cycle of abuse and, like, asking, like, if it can be broken or trying to find a way to break it. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. It is gut-wrenching, but that's probably my favorite one where, yeah.
Yes, Snape is not a sympathetic character, I would say.
Totally, yeah.
But you're right. The trauma and everything informs a lot of his actions.
Yeah, and I think Arisha said herself, it's like a story from the abuser's perspective. So then you get to see like what's going on in their mind while they're committing these acts and then deciding for yourself, like, can this be forgiven? Right.
Mhm. I have An Escape by Lila Dierne.
Lilia Dern?
Oh, okay.
Or maybe I don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest.
I know that's a problem with these.
Mhm.
Did you read it?
I did read it. It's a short one and I love it. And it's very rare for me to love an AU because it's non-magical. And it's basically like, Snape is a teacher at a high school, Harry's a student, and Snape sees that clearly Harry's home life is very abusive. And so, he's kind of being like, I have to help this kid, I have to save this kid, whatever. But it falls into like the unreliable narrator trope where like you don't actually truly know what Snape is thinking here. And like, so he, maybe wiggles his way into taking advantage of that situation and or like helping Harry in a way that you wouldn't expect or that's not necessarily immoral. It's a really good short read. It hits you right in the gut. Highly recommend it. And very dark Snape for sure.
Okay, another one I had pulled up was called A Draft of Wakeful Sleep by Felix File, and it's non-con.
Oh, I think is this another one of my recommendations?
It might
so
be.
sorry.
I should have put people's names by what they put up, but yeah, Lillian Snape.
Yeah, this is probably one of the darkest Snape fics I've ever read. And it's pretty much PWP, but it's basically like it happens when Snape joins the Death Eaters. And so it's before that first war's come to a close. And so the Death Eaters are like spying on Lily, and then Snape, they somehow, I forget how they get, maybe it's like Pettigrew. Snape gets Pettigrew to give Lily a potion that makes her, it's basically date rape. And then yeah, things happen. But what's really interesting is like through the story is like you also get Snape's internal monologue of like, what am I doing? Is this right? I know this is for the Death Eaters, but this is a person that I once loved. Things like that. So
Yeah.
but it is quite dark.
Yeah, I read it too, and it was worthwhile. It's dark though. Yeah, you're correct. Okay. At the Headmaster's Discretion by Desert Sea. I don't remember when I read what I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but I've read this one too.
Okay.
Like, is a lot of BDSM, like a lot.
Uh-huh.
That's what I remember. Let's see. 80,000 words, and oh yeah, look at these tags. Angst, smut on the go, humiliation, vaginal fingering, masturbation, dark Severus Snape, dubious consent, rough sex, dom sub, anal fingering, spanking, object insertion, sex whispering, BDSM, analingus, shibari, dark alcoves, PTSD, flogging, oral sex, blowjobs, anal sex, and double penetration.
There
Yeah,
could be more.
so
Lots of stuff.
that gives you a nice overview of how
You said
smutty-
flogging. I swear I thought
Yeah.
you said blogging. I was like,
Oh no!
You know what?
what a warning.
The most hardcore of all the BDSM acts, just blogging.
He's updating his blog.
Yeah, exactly. Just that. that
It's not even a
post.
kink blog. It's like about baking or something.
That's the side
good.
blog. Don't get that confused.
Oh,
It's
that's
just
so
like
funny.
true masochism. Like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I must. And yeah.
I want to say that also Desert
Yeah.
Sea has a bunch of other like student teacher things. And that's one of the fun things we haven't really gotten into is the power dynamics of student teacher fics.
Oh, yeah.
And how dark that can go. And yeah, this one's pretty good for that. I think there's another Desert Sea story where the line I loved was about how like there was a shattering of the student teacher boundary. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly what's happening here.
Mhm. Yeah. Basically, Snape docks Hermione 500 points from Gryffindor. And so she has to make it up the hard way.
Oh yeah.
Sounds great. Also, when you said that, I thought you said Snape docks Hermione, and I was like, oh no.
Oh.
He doxed her on his blog.
Yeah.
You guys. Best. I'm writing this right now.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that's an AU. Like, Snape and Hermione are having Twitter beef. They don't know each other, and he doxes her.
Uh-huh.
I'd read that.
Me too.
I don't remember. Is this one underage as well?
Oh, at the headmaster's discretion? I mean, probably. Let me see. I don't know. I don't think that's clear. Also, I think there's a lot of us who kind of just avoid mentioning it because of things like the age of consent is different, and what matters more in the power dynamic is the fact that his handwriting is all over her transcripts. So it's it's one of those things where I don't think it's even mentioned.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There's also The Shadow and the Soul by April Feldspar. This is another SSHG, and I've read it and I know it's good. I can't really remember much about it. But so after barely surviving Nagini's bite, Snape finds himself cast in a marriage of convenience with Hermione Granger, of all people. Could it just be unfortunate circumstance or the beginning of something more? And yeah, Snape is his usual slippery self, I guess. Another really interesting one is a one-shot called Chirality by Expected Aberrants. And it's pretty rough. It's Snape and Hermione get in a arrangement where she's trading sexual favors for locations of Horcruxes and things like that. It's really weird. There's a part about vivisection. It's pretty brutal, but short read, very atmospheric.
Sounds like it'd be really good.
Yeah. Okay, we talked a little bit about I Want That One by Teddy Radiator.
Yeah, the one that sets that apart to me is the part where it's entirely from Hermione's point of view, and all she sees is the like brutal things he does. But that's enough, like it's brutal. He uses potions to coerce her, he abuses her thoroughly, he treats her with a lot of humiliation. And there's clues in what he says about how, like how could you betray your friends? And so there's a little bit of a mystery in there. And it kind of comes out in the end and gives you a like safe target to direct all your like uncomfortable feelings at. So that one's really good for that.
And it's another Voldemort wins.
Yeah. One of my favorite dark tropes is spoils of war. So my Rex might have a lot of those.
Okay, For the Cause by Paramania, Loop Guru is another SSHG. It's the first Dead Dove I ever read, and it stuck with me for a long time. And then I would occasionally come across it again, and it's like, oh, do I want to read this? But I do, It's a little disturbing, I guess you could say.
What's the ship for this one?
This is also SSHG.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hermione finds herself lost in Nocturne Alley and runs across Snape, and she gloms onto him. But it turns out he's going to this sex club, and I don't know, it's a little rough on poor Hermione, everything that happens to her.
Is this one like post-war or pre-war?
It's pre-war.
Okay.
She's only about 13, so yeah, it's
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
R.I.P. Hermione.
Poor girl. So if you don't like being disturbed, I wouldn't read it, but if you do, well,
You're
maybe
welcome.
it's your jam. Okay.
Ooh, there's also like a dark Dumbledore in that one. That's yeah. So it's dark Snape and dark Dumbledore. Love it. All right.
Yeah. Your Tears Are of No Relevance to Me by Hiroko Chan. Is it Chan?
That sounds right to
Is it
me.
Chan or Chan? Hiroko Chan.
Oh, Chan.
If I were speaking Japanese, I'd say Chan, but if I were speaking English, I'd say Chan.
Okay.
Just
okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels awkward, like pronouncing. It's like saying karaoke like the Japanese way when you're speaking English. It just feels weird.
So the pronunciation is also, is it Hiruko? Like
Oh, is it Hiroko?
Hiruko.
Oh, Hiruko. I don't know that that's like a real
Hiruko. Okay.
but that's how you would pronounce it, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Oh, it's a deity. Okay. Sorry.
Oh goodness. Okay. Well, this is a Snape reader, and it's actually the first one I've ever read. Still, I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. And your father was a Death Eater at the Ministry of Magic, so he's fallen into disgrace with the Dark Lord, and you offer up yourself in order to protect your younger sisters and restore the family honor. And Snape basically asks for you. And so there's some rough stuff, but it's actually very engaging. And I don't know, it even into it, as far as I am, things seem like they get worse. So if you like the angst and everything, it's really a good fic.
I just want to add in, like, there's also some writers who, even though it's not necessarily like a dark Snape, it's like a bastard Snape who's just really prickly and like really awful. And a writer I feel is really good at this is Perverse Idol.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, her Snape is just, he's so rough, but it's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I listed Year of the Thestral.
oh yeah, fantastic story. Where it's like during his like reign as headmaster during like that 7th year. And just like him and Minerva and like their relationship kind of goes through the rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, like in all of her fics, even like when it's like a good ending or whatever, it's just, yeah, he's really rough, but so well written and so dark and prickly.
Yeah. It's the only fic that ever made me cry.
Aw, it's such a good one. And it's
It
for
really
me, it's
is.
like I never thought in a million years I would ship that ship, but like once you read the first chapter, you're just so in, and it completely changed my mind, and now I like totally ship them.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay, another one I've read is Corvus Valare by Mouse Writes. It's a series where Snape fucks everybody.
Oh yeah.
Good for him.
So basically, the light loses, the dark side wins,
Hmm.
and Harry, Ron, and Hermione are sold to Snape, who then proceeds to train them to become sex slaves.
This sounds amazing.
It is, it's good. And
But there's more than meets the eye.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ooh, because honestly, like I never considered Snape and Ron, but like, oh my goodness, I'm so into it.
yeah, I think maybe Ron has the hardest time of the three, actually.
I mean, there are a few good Snape and Ron fics out there.
Yeah.
I must read them all.
Oh, well, cherubim under or seraphim under the Christmas tree.
Yeah, that's the best one, I think. And it's definitely not like a particularly like dark Snape fic. Like
No.
it's, you know, I was gonna say played straight, but like I mean it's not straight, but you know what I mean. Like it is a romantic ship fic, like there's angst and stuff like that, but yeah.
Mhm.
Amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Snape fucks everybody. Okay, I see somebody put revenge is sweet.
yes, that was my ad. I wreck it a lot because it covers so much stuff regarding like Snape and his character and things like that. And this is a story that pretty much directs a reason why he chooses the Death Eaters, which
Mm.
ultimately is like he finally starts to soften up and trust James, but then is obviously betrayed
Oh no.
at some point, and then finally decides to follow Lucius because Lucius has been working his little manipulative like magic from outside of school, obviously, if you're going based on canonical age of trying to coerce Severus to join. So ultimately it's like something that is very angsty. Like how it goes about hurts so very much. Like it's just you feel like it's going in the right direction and then it just goes very, very wrong in the worst way. And so then obviously then that's when he's like, I cannot trust anyone. Fuck all you people. And he ends up going and like running off to join the Death Eaters. And I think technically it's like before the end of school. So like he leaves Hogwarts early to join up with them. And then we see sort of like post Hogwarts James' point of view and how shitty his life is going because of what happened. And then when they finally come back to meet each other once again, the way Snape is written is how like haggard he's become and how it's like clearly war and evil doings has affected him. You know, like his youth and innocence is pretty much gone. And it's just really interesting to see all the different shades of his character. And it does end up with like a, you know, like a hopeful, bittersweet ending. But seeing that the reason why he chooses the dark side and goes all into it is like, is great. I love this story so much.
Nice. Oh, I wish I could remember. It just occurred to me. There is another one also where young Severus becomes a Death Eater, and it basically involves having lots of sex with Muggleborns, and he's not a nice man in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll try to find it.
I don't know why, but that reminded me of this fic I read. So one of my guilty pleasure ships is Gilderoy and Snape, which is there's not a lot of content, but there's this one fic I was reading. Again, I don't remember the name of it, but like it's like First War, Gilderoy and Snape are like hooking up, and then he's having a really hard time coping with like the stress of the war. So Gilderoy just like starts crying one day.
Oh.
And he goes to Snape. He's like, "Can you like this is so stressful?" And then Snape is literally like, "Ew."
Ew.
Like I don't like ew. Like I don't like you're just a fuck buddy. Like we don't do this.
Oh.
Ew. Like back the fuck up. Ew.
It was so funny. Like, it's not funny, but it's
Right.
fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very like awful for.
Yeah, but it's like one of my guilty pleasure fics. I'll find the name of it, but
Mhm.
Okay. So we have a couple with no names at this point, but
Yes.
we will they will be on the website.
Yeah.
Additional
So
reading
just
page.
check out the Dark Snape, Dark Severus tag on AO3 and stuff. So
Yeah.
get
Mhm.
lots of different things.
Yeah.
I like your trick on the summary search. That's cool. That's smart.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the best things I've found. So AO3 is really interesting how you can go about doing things,
Mm-hmm.
but it's complicated too.
Yeah. Once you get it, obviously it's very helpful, but otherwise it just seems overwhelming and not. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And even, there's times when I want to narrow down my search more, but I'm not sure how to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
I find with HP, because there's so much fic out there, that for me
Mhm.
the best way to find stuff is just to go to rec lists of
Mhm.
people whose taste I know I like.
oh,
Like
right.
I don't think, yeah, like I feel like I've yet to use the search function on AO3 just because there's so many rec lists that have it like all
Uh-huh.
detailed and
Yep.
out of
I
everything.
do a lot
That's
of
true.
bookmark trawling. Like
Yes.
I'll find a fic I
Mm.
like and be like, okay, either that author's bookmarks or people who have bookmarked this fic.
Mhm.
You know, then you
Oh.
just get this web of recommendations.
Oh, nice.
Interesting.
My marked for later list is many, many pages long.
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to mention Dan Puff on Tumblr does really
Yes.
good rec
Yeah.
lists.
Rec lists. Mm-hmm.
And she's been on the show several times.
Really good rec list and also really good fic.
Yeah, I was about to
Mhm.
say,
Yes.
like,
Amazing.
definitely written some good fics, and like speaking of like kind of Dark Snape and Dead Dove, like it goes into that too, which I've enjoyed.
Mhm. Okay, well, gosh, I think that's about everything.
Yeah.
Oh, and we're only at the
That's
2.5 hour mark.
Only.
It'll mix down to, yeah,
Yeah.
probably an hour 45.
Mhm. This was so much fun. Thanks for having us all on.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me to be a guest.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. It's been a minute, but I always love
Mhm.
coming on this pod.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just enjoy everybody joining me and having so many great things to say. And so, MrVillain
Yes.
and Hal
Yeah, so long, everybody.
and Megs
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Masa.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
And there you have it. Thanks again to MrVillain, Masa the dog, JalapenoEyePopper, and GreenMegsNoHam for the awesome chat. I forgot to mention the amazing Certain Dark Things by Eve Jensen Rentachi. At nearly 1 million words, it's a beast of a fic that follows the school career of one Harriet Potter. She's got a lightning scar on her neck, talks to snakes, and gets sorted into Slytherin, along with Hermione Granger and Alara Black, daughter of Sirius. Voldemort is gone, but a couple of his Horcruxes have emerged. One is the Minister of Magic, and the other teaches defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts. And there's a boy who lived as well. Harriet's story roughly follows the books, except all sorts of wrong things happen. And Snape is the potions master who mentors her to the best of his ability. It's a work in progress that is updated regularly, and there are lots of related works, and even a Discord server. Good stuff. Go to our additional reading page at snapechatpodcast.com for fic recs and more. And here we must say goodbye. We wish we didn't have to, but it hasn't escaped our notice that life isn't fair. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Tumblr and X, or leave a comment on our website at snapechatpodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. Support us on Ko-fi to help defray costs of production. That's ko-fi.com. Donate $10 or more and we'll send you some nifty Snape Chat stickers wherever in the world you live. Many thanks to Nix for her continued work on our website at snapechatpodcast.com. Be sure to check out Care of Magical Shippers podcast and alwayssnape.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay snarky.